Welcome back, guys. Episode, no, I'm not even going to mention it because we have actually lost track purely because we're doing obviously solo episodes and we're like, literally, me and Emma have spent about 5 minutes discussing what episode it really is. And we came to a conclusion that we couldn't care less now.
Even
And
better.
yeah, it doesn't matter basically. So Nate's not with us. He's getting his COVID jab. Obviously, the lad is now moving to Dubai. So he needs it ASAP effectively. So we're gonna dive deep into social media once again, and the rise of influencers over the last 10 years. We have seen, again, it's been good and bad. I think we're going to discuss both because obviously, you can call us micro influencers if you wanted to, but you've got the major influencers. Obviously we discussed our own journeys last week with social media, and we wanted to kind of discuss, take ourselves out from it, and we want to kind of go into like what is going on through the power of social media right now, social with Twitter, Instagram. You got TikTok nowadays. There's new platforms every other minute. So Emily, let's dive deep into it, and then let's obviously look at like the rise of influencers right now. Like what have you seen over the last 10 years? Like let's go with starting off with Instagram, because obviously Instagram is like being the main platform for influencers right now, even for our own businesses right here, right? So what's the biggest trends you've seen with these guys?
I mean, I want to make it official that I'm terrible at following, and I don't like influencers have never appealed to me. My brother always keeps saying, you should find an influencer that will solve all of your problems. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so I would say that I'm pretty bad at saying what I've seen as a trend because I genuinely don't follow influencers.
Mhm.
Um, or as you say, like, and this is the thing about influencers. Everyone is influential. And the question we're going to talk about today is, are these influencers doing it with integrity or not?
Yep.
Um, and so even though like I do not want to call myself an influencer in any way, but I am influential. But I would like to think that the way I do it is it's with integrity. It's never to lie or really to make profits out of saying something that I don't believe in.
Mhm.
And I do think before we press play was, there are a lot of people, not even influencers, just people in general who make claims that something solved their problems when in fact it's so much more depth to solving a problem. And specifically, we talked about Herbalife.
Yep.
And I've been contacted by so many people from Herbalife. Oh my God. And yeah, I don't even know where I stand there. Like, let's go to you first, like, because my history of influencers has been so scarce because I avoid them like the plague.
Yep.
Wrongfully or rightfully, I don't know. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
It's interesting because like having been on Instagram now for me since 2013, 2014, it's nearly coming up to what, 10 years, right? So I've seen it change a lot, right? It used to just be like people uploaded pictures and that was really it. Now it's gone to a level where it's like, you see it at the top, like, where it's like location, it says paid advertising or something like that.
I
And
haven't seen that. That's how
it's,
bad I am.
and literally this is just people obviously I'm following, and people are like, they're just naturally are like, you're getting paid for this actual post. And we obviously know about, like, for example, I read somewhere about Kim Kardashian, she gets paid like 500K per post to sponsor something, which is insane when you
I
think
think
about
she
it.
get paid more. I
Maybe
think
more,
I
like,
actually saw somewhere where it's like she talked about fake lashes or something, and they were literally like, "Oh yeah, I got 6 million,
that's insane, like getting six
and
million per
free
post.
lashes and extensions for life."
That's insane. So it's one of those where I've seen it rise up, right? And then we're not just going to talk about the negative side of things. I think today, I think we want to also discuss, there is positives to also, quote unquote, everyone you follow is influencing you on your decision on a day-to-day basis, whether it is fitness, whether it is beauty and makeup, whether it's motivation. You choose what you want to follow, so it's up to you at the end of the day. However, like, I was giving you that story just before we started this pod, and we talk about this, like, specific people that were promoting firstly Herbalife as their main kind of, this is how I got my result, which is dangerous because if someone does look up to that person and think, oh yeah, they did it through this supplement, that's going to basically, they go out there and spend £400, £500 on, like, let's say this kit or whatever. And then they come out of that the other side and they're like, I didn't get any results, because we know what works, right? We know it's going to be caloric deficit. It's not just drinking a shake and thinking I'm good to go with this shake and then eat whatever I want. It's never going to work that way. So I've seen that happen even when I was at Holland and Barrett, when you left uni, right? People, you just coming for the specific supplement. And I remember specifically seeing, I remember these two young girls who came into the shop. They must have been like 16, 15 years old. Do you remember skinny fit tees and boot tees?
Yeah, huge, right?
Right? They were huge maybe 3, 4 years ago. They're not anymore, but they came to the store and they were like, hey, do you guys have this? And I was like, yeah, but why do you need it? And you're like, yeah, I just saw this model use on Instagram. That's when I knew. And this was maybe what, 2016, 2017. That's when I was like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
insane. Like, I didn't realize how far this is going now in
But
terms
this
of.
is the same as, that's what Gymshark used, right? He was one of, like, I wouldn't say the first ones, but he really made that a thing about sending out his stuff to guys who were big on Instagram.
Yep.
Right? And it was huge. And I think, like, after that, I mean, then I started seeing it more and more. But for me, I think he was one of the, or Gymshark was one of the first one.
Look,
Right?
I have nothing against them giving things out to people. I think, like, for example, I get the rise of like influencers now is like actual. It's a way to generate traffic to your business, right? Great, that's fine with me. And I think one thing he's done, Ben Francis, is also gone into like, other YouTubers who are not quote unquote, like he's done True Geordie, right? Who is, I wouldn't say obese or anything like that, but he's just like, he looks like a regular guy, right? So he's gone into that market and said, you know what, I'm going to help out, anyone. And, obviously we've talked about plus size and we spoke about that as well, like the body positivity movement a couple episodes ago. So they've, with the rise of that as well, things have changed. But I think, I agree with Gymshark. It was also like the most jacked dude and so on. I remember speaking to someone, they were like, I couldn't relate to Gymshark's story before. Or it was I think Alpha League. They were like, I couldn't relate to it because it was just mainly like guys who were jacked and so on. And I couldn't really rock that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how like the influences can shape, who goes and buys your product. But talking about this one, obviously, like the two girls bought it, and I was just like, damn, they're like 15, 16. They're already like, super self-conscious about what's going on. And at the same time, they've also been influenced by, let's say, a model who's not using skinny tees. It's just, let me just stand here, take a picture with it, get paid, done.
Yeah.
That was the scary element to me.
Because I read and again, I really am not giving the right information here, but I read somewhere there was a woman who had recommended these fat burning pills, and I think someone either died or got seriously hurt.
Wow.
And it just turned out that this woman never even took the pills herself. And I think that is the issue with influencing people. It's like, I think like if you have a product that you wholeheartedly believe in because you've taken it, you've seen the transformation, maybe your family tried it and you've seen that it's like something that's good. And again, we have to separate, like, there's one thing of recommending someone a clothing and recommending something to eat, because
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous, right? And especially when it comes to herbal compounds or artificial things created by man that we don't know the effects by because it's not very regulated. It's dangerous, and we have to then maybe separate, like, yeah, maybe cosmetics. I mean, we can go down there because I watched a whole documentary about like the toxicity in cosmetics, but let's not go down there because
That could be another episode, right?
Don't use makeup, guys. No, I'm just kidding. But be careful where you buy your makeup from, basically. But where was it going? Yeah, basically, but I think she got caught up on it, and I think she had to pay a price for it. And then, of course,
What was the price though? Like, obviously,
I think
is
it
it going to
was
be prison
a
time
hefty
or what?
fine. Hefty
Hefty
fine.
fine.
Yeah. And then, obviously, I think she had to go online and apologize and go like, I never ate it myself, and yeah. I saw another one. Oh gosh, now I'm going down the. I actually have followed influencers. Yes. I came across a woman who was so heavily pro veganism and raw food.
Oh yes, I've seen this one. And
Yeah, and she literally
vegan,
has
right?
been for years telling people that this is how you should be living. You feel fantastic and blah 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 blah. And it turns out that she has no period. She has no iron in her body and she's sick. And then she was caught eating a piece of fish, I think, and it went viral because she's been there completely just like, no guys, you shouldn't eat any dead animals and blah. And all of a sudden she get caught eating a piece of fish, and then she has to come out and tell everyone that, oh, I have this thing because I haven't eaten any meat or any fish or anything. I just have these really whack hormones, and I just thought that was fantastic, and she lost so much following.
Yeah, I remember that one because it was on news. Like I don't think people
Yeah,
even follow. It was actually in the news. It was just
that's
like,
what I saw it as well.
yeah, I think I saw in the news as well because it was like she had like a massive following on YouTube,
Yeah,
and then because again, if you're a vegan, like let's say influencer, you're gonna get a ton of like everyone's gonna look to you as like that vegan person and be like, look, let me see that as inspiration.
yeah,
And as soon as things went south, people, you're not gonna like get that same following because they followed you for a reason because you're vegan.
yeah.
And then obviously they may have liked you, etc. But that's
I think
insane when you think about
more
it.
the lying, the integrity of lying,
Yeah,
and then she tried to resolve it by saying, "Hey guys, I'm so sorry, I've been lying, but I've been sick." It's like, but we go back to the word integrity, right? I mean, I want to swear really loudly, and actually, I get really outraged by this because people do things without integrity, and I think it's why this world is a little bit fucked and polarized because people believe so strongly in something that could just all be a lie, you
yeah,
know, because you're looking at a portrait of what someone wants you to look at because it sells, because you have followings, and then you can get these people to do almost anything that you want because they believe in what you say, because they believe that you live that life. So yeah.
yeah.
And
I've
if
seen it.
that's what it takes to be an actual influencer, I don't want to be one. I want to
Yeah,
be a micro influencer and just do this little thing on the side. Like, that's it.
because it is quite like when you think about it, like obviously you don't know what they're doing themselves, like the actual influencers. Because like I said, she was sick, right? So she was just like, yeah, I'd rather be sick and just get paid. That's her basically mentality was,
Yeah,
right? It's like, why not just admit that I'm sick? I need to do something about it. I need to probably change my ways of eating, whatever it is, right? At least your followers then be like, okay, she's actually ill. Like, let's do something about it. Let's help her out, whatever. But it's also I've seen the rise of like TV stars now, and again I've seen this on the news more so than following these people. But I've seen where they're promoting ketones and actual supplements. Again, this is where I've seen the rise, and again, this is not as dangerous to us guys. So because we're kind of understanding what's going on. This is mainly for like the general public, but also young guys and girls because you watch these guys. Let's say if you watch Love Island in the summer, right? And then September comes around, they become a major influencers, they sign record deals, whatever it is. And then suddenly, they're promoting a supplement too. And you're thinking, yeah, because they had it and their physique was amazing on this. Let me take it. And I think that's where the danger aspect is, in my opinion. Like, I think it could only go, there's going to go two ways, right? It's either going to get worse over the next 5 to 10 years, or they're just going to get called out more and more. I think it's going to a level where people are getting called out quite quickly.
I
I
think
think,
so.
we've got a good community in fitness. Firstly, I'm just talking about fitness in general, right? I don't know about any other like marketing influencer side of things, like if it's fashion or whatever. But with fitness, if you're promoting something and we know it's fake and the whole industry is like, we'll call you out.
I
Like,
love that. It's the only
that's the
thing I
best thing.
love to read when people say stupid shit
And
and
gets
they're
called
getting
out.
fucking mangled.
Yeah.
They get dragged to the slaughterhouse and just being like obliviated to the public.
And
I
that's the best
actually,
thing
that's
about
the only
fitness.
thing I love.
That's the amazing part about fitness, in my opinion, because I've seen it happen. Like there's one that I remember, like Vince V Shred or something like that. He gets dragged every single day, because he promotes this thing about like, if you have this certain body type, this is your certain diet that you should be on. And so everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like, just doesn't make sense. And then there's another one is this intermittent fasting king. What's his name? Kino Body or something like that. He's another YouTuber. All he does is promote intermittent fasting and thinks that's the only way to get results.
Yeah,
And everyone's like, stop this shit. And it's literally just like Alan Argon, Brad Schoenfeld, all these guys who are like top in their field when it comes out to like research and science. They come out and they're just like, stop this shit because you're just promoting the worst thing in fitness right now. And people, the problem is people do buy that because it's a shiny object syndrome, right? And that's something that we also want to discuss as well. It's like, obviously a lot of these guys are promoting shiny objects, so it's there for you to buy straight away. And that's something that I don't think you've ever been influenced to buy something straight away from like I said, you don't even follow influencers. But have there been an experience in the past where you're like, let's say 10 years ago, 5 years ago, through any form of social media, or thinking, I may go for that kind of program or whatever it is, just because you've kind of seen it a lot more?
I think we're all fooled to think that we're not influenced on a daily basis.
Yep.
Regardless if it is by people or commercial, it's there all the time, and there's so much to that we don't know, and it's so influential. So yeah, I'm sure. And also, like, I am naive, but I stop myself. So I want to believe like, my critical thinking is like, yeah, wow, that's amazing. And I go like, wait a second, let's rail that back a little bit, look at it objectively.
Yeah.
But I'm like, woo, vodka. I should probably drink that right now. And I'll have that mind that goes like, yeah, this is a good idea, and then go, ooh, let's just look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm super influential, but I do have that break of like, stop, look at it, then come back, maybe talk
Makes
to
sense.
other people, look at a little bit of research, read on the internet, and then make a decision.
Don't make a decision based on emotion, people. I think that's
Never
one.
make decisions based on emotion. I think, but also if you are an emotional person like myself, I mean, God, I don't even know.
Yeah,
Don't
but
wake up today. Do I not want to wake up today? Like, you just can't. Yeah, no, don't make
that's
decisions
interesting.
on emotion. Make them on facts.
Yep.
Period.
Always go on fact, yeah, because again, you can't go wrong with the fact, right?
Yeah,
Again, make sure that that fact is a fact. At times,
yeah. That's
obviously,
You
still.
touched on it before. Like, we follow the people that we want to follow, and I've actually consciously, the last year and a half, I follow people whose opinion I don't really resonate with as well, because if we only follow people that has a message that we like, we become narrow-minded.
Yep.
And we get more ads that way. We get more, oh, follow this person that way, and we get caught up in this bubble that we then believe is the right way, and we actually polarize even more, and the world is so polarized, and now we fight over things that we shouldn't even fight about, because everyone should feel so strongly about their own little thoughts, and it's like, yes, actually, I try to follow people I would never really follow, and like, they talk about things I'm not even interested in, just for that reason, that I try to at least get influenced by other ideas than my own.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense as well because, like I said, it broadens your horizon. Another thing you mentioned there was ads. Now, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, there wasn't many ads, in my opinion. Like, I don't think there was. Like, you remember if you watch, like, for example, I've done this thing where, like, I've looked at a supplement, if it's a protein powder, and then I'd get like an ad on Instagram, would be another supplement coming through it. So the rise of ads is also going to cause more issues in a sense of people buying, impulse buying, right? So let's say you look for one thing, that suddenly turns into 10 different things, just spilled in a different way, all over your Facebook and all over your Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, we don't realize how dangerous they are, the ads now, especially because with kids, and I'm looking at like kids more so than ever right now, because I'm just like, okay, how will they kind of, because obviously we spoke about last week about like our generation and how we got influenced to a large level to get into fitness, right? For us, it was very much direct, right? It was seeing things and then happening. Like, for example, Nate mentioned obviously him with kids in his school, and obviously him changing. For us, it was all like very, very similar. Now it's going to be kids who are looking at ads on Instagram. It's going to be actual Instagram and Facebook. So the rise of that is going to be, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a bit dangerous in my opinion, because there's going to be very extremes.
It's
There's,
very dangerous.
yeah, like, forget even fitness. It's also going to be beauty standards, right? Like Botox. Let me get this done. Let me get that done.
I mean, have you not heard, like, they actually go to the doctors and explain to them how they want to look like a filter?
Oh wow, I've
Like,
not heard that. No,
no,
no.
like, they're actually like, that is the rise of things. They will come and be like, I want to look like this filter, and they go like, your wishes shall be. And what they would be like, say, 17, 18-year-old girls, like, with loads of money, and they will actually go and have plastic surgery to look like a filter.
Wow,
It is a
that's insane to
rising
me.
thing. Like, I don't think by 2050, I think the majority of people who are born from now to then, or have been born like maybe 10 years ago, plastics, oh my God.
So by 2030, 2035, things
No,
should
like
be
by
out.
at least by 2050, I think more than like 75% of all the population in the world probably have had a plastic. This is just me pulling numbers out of my ass, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
really think that the rise of all of these body issues given by the false perception of what you should look like, because that's what a filter gave you. That's for me, like I'm so adamant to never use filters. Even like now, because I've had acne, I used to have that nice filter. You swipe one time and you get like a little bit nicer skin tone. I used to do that. Now I'm
What's that
like,
one?
I think if you go on Instagram story and then you go like Paris,
Oh, yeah, yeah. When you swipe.
Paris,
Yes, 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 yeah.
I would do that. But that would be the only thing I do. I don't modify my but now I'm like, no, you know what? I'm okay with having my acne scars. Let them be there, you know. And then at least people can look at me and they say, like, actually, she's pretty much human. And then she speaks kind of like rough. She's a rough girl, you know. And I go, okay, cool. I like her because I can resonate with her because that's how I feel inside. Because we're trying to, I think that is the issue, that we're trying to live in a way that is not congruent and like with integrity to who we are on the inside, which is going to cause so much distress.
Mm.
And that's why I said, like, if I can be that one voice that one person looks on the screen, I feel like I resonate with her because she looks human and she talks like a human. Fuck, that's me. Then I'm done, you know. And then if that would scale to 1 million people, of course that would be amazing, as long as my integrity in that journey doesn't stop. Um, which
Yeah.
I'm sure people who have that many following have their fair share of issues because there will be pressure. And
That's
I'm
another thing,
sure that
right?
we,
We haven't
we
really
don't
talked
know
about.
the issues that they have and the people that trying to, like, we don't know. So it's really hard to sit here and say, oh, poor, shame on them. And like, yeah, because essentially being an influencer is running a business, which
Yep.
has their own set of rules. And yeah, but anyway, I'm digressing.
But
So
I think it depends. Like, even if you're an influencer, right? Like, let's say Emily today, you've got 1 million followers, and you are basically a huge influencer now. I don't think you change though, right? So I don't think you start out like if you start promoting like ketos and stuff like that. Let's go with the supplement side of things,
please
right? Let's go.
tweet me if I do.
That's the
Let's
thing,
make
right?
it
Like,
official if I ever promote ketones.
great. I just don't see that ever happening, right? So it's like
No.
it's also the influence. I'm guessing it's probably from like their marketing agency. It's not necessarily directly them who are like, oh yeah, let me take this. It's very much like you're gonna get paid by this company because again, if it makes dollars, it makes sense. That's how they see it.
Yeah, but I
So
think that is I
the
think
wrong
that is,
way.
it's the wrong way. Of course, like everyone wants to make money, but it's blood money essentially, you
Yeah.
know, and you're not going to feel good about making that money unless you don't have a soul, which I don't think some people don't have a soul and they actually only care about building a legacy, as we can call it. Um, but if you
But
have,
that's not even a legacy, right? Because it's very short term. Like
yeah,
think about it. You
it
promote a
feels
supplement.
good because people live for the moment. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
what feels
yeah.
good right now? Well, getting X amount of likes and shares and making dollars every day, yeah, it's going to feel really good and it's going to be an addictive feeling, right? It's dopamine after dopamine after dopamine. So, like, yeah, but I genuinely think that the people who do things without integrity are the people who suffer long term because you just know when you're not truthful,
Yeah.
and that is suffering, period.
Mm, I agree. So I want to dive deep into a bit more of like where do you think social media will go? Let's say in about 10 years time, because we can only go like 10 years and on what we think about it. Like, do you think like what we've seen, and I've seen it with like football, for example, is like, for example, racism is now on the rise on social media, and they're now really clamping down on that. Like, do you see that happening, let's say within, let's say beauty, within even our industry? Like, where do you see fitness, or not necessarily fitness, but where do you see social media heading towards this? Like, will there be loads of more messages saying, hey, this, I don't know what it is, like, how COVID is, right? And they have that message about COVID on
Yeah,
like some posts, if
yeah.
you hashtag COVID. Like, do you see more of those type of messages where it'll be like warning, this, or do you think it will just carry on as normal because ultimately it is, if it makes money, right, it makes sense.
um I think that the polarization is going to continue and the narrow-mindedness of people's peripheral is going to be closer, it's going to be smaller, which means that what you are essentially being bombarded with in terms of information and ads is also going to be tailored, very tailored to fit your so-called needs and wants,
Yep.
what you believe is what you want and need, because it's always in your face. And I think I wish that these institutions of these big companies could have better regulations where, because I think back in the day, some things would be taken down. Like it's like you're not allowed to post this kind of thing. And I think that
Put it into context. ISIS uploaded a beheading on YouTube,
I remember, and I
and I
watched
was
it.
like, "That's crazy." I didn't watch it,
Watched
but like
it.
I remember they posted it, and it was taken down quite quickly, right? From what I know.
Yeah,
But they left it for a bit too long. That's what I heard, and
yeah.
that's when the pressure came through. And that's when things got progressively worse, right? In terms of like what is the role of these head of these companies, and things like Zuckerberg was on trial for all of this stuff, and
But I
all
think
of these companies as well. That what's their main role now?
the thing is, it's so hard to give that type of role, because if we're talking about freedom of speech,
Yes,
and if
yeah,
you're then trying to direct people away from information, I'm not saying that they shouldn't, because some things shouldn't be available. Like literally take down all the child porn and don't have it out there. There's so much things that should be taken away. But then if you do flip it on it and go, well, if we're taking away the right to upload any information, then essentially we are directing people into a way of thinking that is not now free.
yep.
It's a really hard question, but I think, I mean, it's really hard. Actually, yeah, I mean, I want to say take down everything that I don't agree with, but that's just my world, right? But I've seen, and this is when if we go back to that ISIS thing, the change in people's belief system about Muslims overnight, has like it's changed, and you create more fear about things that aren't real.
Yep.
You're taking the smallest minority, and all of a sudden you cast a spell on a huge population. And I've gone into many discussions about this, and I mean it angers me to see people's narrow-mindedness. But then I believe that, okay, if people like, if we create fear with social media, we only create more polarization, and that's it. So I
100%.
think anything that causes fear shouldn't really be ready available, at least. Or I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe there should be messages, or there should be censorship. I don't know how they would solve it. It's a
I think
really
there's gonna be
hard
more
question.
pressure. I actually think there's gonna be a lot more pressure.
Yeah,
Just the way I've seen it with like football recently, like there's been like actual players taking stands against social media. They're like, look, we're not gonna be using social media anymore. So that's like that's when people will start realizing, like, especially the heads of, let's say the CEOs of these companies, I'm like, if they're gonna stop using it, things are getting like a bit south. We need to do something about it, because these are actual big influencers. Like someone who has 30 million followers, they say I'm gonna stop using it,
yeah,
then they've got something there going on, right? And it's interesting you mentioned about Muslims there. Obviously, since 9/11, pretty much like the last 20 years, it's
yeah,
been like very polarizing, right? We've seen
yeah,
what's been happening through that. Um, in terms of that question, obviously, I personally think over the next, like, I think it'll get progressively worse over 5 years, and then I think the next 5 years after that, there's gonna be like a scale where you mentioned about like people want realism after that. Like they'll get so sick of it's like if there's so much AI, you want someone who just speaks like human. You want a human on the other end instead, right? So I think they'll kind of it'll flip again, where you've seen that within the fitness industry now. Like I think 5 years ago, we all followed like just influencers, right? Especially on IG, I know I did. Now it's like, let me just follow this science-based guy instead, because I'm kind of into that now.
yeah,
But I guess it just depends on who you are in that moment. Will also determine who you follow and what you want to consume on your day-to-day basis.
yeah,
That's good. That's going to be an interesting aspect of most people, right? So it's like what you do now will always shape what you do in the future as well. So
yeah,
for the kids out there who may be listening to this, who are in college and so on, it's like you realize like what you see maybe on the internet from, like, let's say someone who is selling this or who is, you know, having these beauty standards, they're not set in stone for the next 10 years or whatever. It's like it's in the moment now. Forget about it after 24 hours. It's like a story. You forget about it after 24 hours. And I think that's the dangerous aspect right now.
I think also, and you can give me your opinion on this. Again, I'm going to generalize quite heavily here, and when I say people, but people follow people to try and solve their problems. So they're looking for people to find solutions.
Yep.
rather than going inherently inwards and see what the structural thing, what needs to happen structurally, and then go, cool, we still need solutions, but sometimes we need to reconstruct who we are before we get the solutions. If we're going into like a transformation journey, people go straight to the next training, eating, whatever fad they can find because they're looking for a solution. And they skip the step where they need to go, right, maybe my habits, my thought process, and everything else needs to shift before I can find that solution and see that all of this is just like band-aid solutions. All of them will work, by the way, if you can stick to them. Whether you like them or not, they will work, all of them, except ketones. But yeah, so I think a lot of people will follow things where they find that, oh, this person will have my solution, instead of thinking, who can I follow that will upgrade my mind, that will then help me propel in that finding those solutions also myself. And I don't know. So whenever I follow so many different kinds of people, because I think that's how you start to think differently, and then you start to operate slightly differently.
I think I've always been into that as well myself. Like I've always followed people who I've never like would never, essentially, if I saw them in the street, I don't know if I would speak to them, if that makes sense. Right? It's one of those, like, I don't know their story unless I'm on social media. Like one of my favorite podcasts of all time is called Brilliant Idiots. It's with two guys in New York. One's a radio host and one's a comedian. And that comedian's gone massive now in 2020, 2021. But I've been following since 2013, right? And I've just seen their rise go up and up and up. But they grew up in like New York. I grew up in like Kenya, Tanzania, and London. I have a completely different like background to them. But the way they spoke about, like, trying to make it in New York, trying to make it in the comedy scene. Charlemagne's a radio host. He's trying to interview loads of different people. Then he sells 2 bestsellers in that time, in the 7 years in New York bestsellers. And I was like, this is quite amazing. And I use that as like, that influenced me in like 2017. I always mention people like, a couple of books change your life. I think I mentioned that in our podcast as well. And that influenced me in a way that kind of, it resonated because of his story. But his story is completely different to my story.
Yeah.
Right. But it's still like, I can still relate to like what he did. And I can still relate to like how he did everything, that I can kind of say, okay, look, he said, why don't you go try and work for free somewhere? I was like, you know what? Why not? Why can't I just go and do that? Because it can work better for me in the long term in what I want to do. So is the advice I got, I think is great. And let's kind of shift to that actually, which is any positive influences you've had from social media. And also, like, there is a lot of positive in this. I know we kind of spoke about like for half an hour like now about the negative side of things, and there is going to be loads of negatives, but there's also going to be, on the other end, there is going to be positives, right? Like, people probably found us through social media, people found other people through social media, like maybe a counselor. People who suffer from depression, if they were like, I mean, go and see this person. Like, I watched a Jordan Peterson video yesterday, and someone below commented, Jordan Peterson saved my life from depression and suicide. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. And that's just on your YouTube comment, not necessarily on his Instagram. I think it was just on his YouTube like page. And I was like, wow, that's amazing, truth be told, because he's just influenced someone to kind of think differently.
Yeah.
So have you had any stories yourself with like social media influences, or any positive influences? Forget even social media influences, just general influences through the power of like Facebook or Instagram.
I mean, I think you can find positive things on a daily basis as well. If you make it into a positive, and the thing is, everything is what you make of it. You can look at any post and go like, this is so shit, or you can go, wow, this is so inspiring. Because you can choose to go like, wow, I could never do that, that's impossible. Yeah, he was lucky, she was lucky, they didn't work for that, and look at, it was given. You can keep going into that story. You can go like, wow, that's really inspiring, look at that, where they come from. And again, you have to read between the lines and go like, well, we don't know the true story, they just present the story, right? But if you can go, actually, I find it very inspiring. And as we talked about last,
like, present it in the best light possible, right? That's what it is.
And as we talked about last podcast, if you were never, like, I grew up in a suburb in Stockholm with a single mom. Like, we weren't like really well off. So to find people similar to me who have so-called made it, or make X amount of money, or have X influential, have done X experience, to find people that I think, oh, but if that person have managed to do that, I can also do that if I work for it.
Yep.
And you know, it can spur on that, like your imagination. Because if I were stuck in my childhood hood attitude of like, this is where you like you live and die kind of thing,
This is where I'm at. Yeah.
you know, would I be where I am today? No, I wouldn't. So it's kind of amazing to be able to follow these people who have so quote unquote made something of themselves, or they have, so yeah, they have something that you could aspire to and go like, well, wow, I didn't even know it was possible to live on a yacht. Like, you know, and it's like you open up your mind to all of these possibilities. Now I'm not saying that I want to live on a yacht, but the possibility is there. So yeah, I mean, I think
And
so.
that's the power of social media. To truth be told, it's like it opens up your eyes to different things.
Hmm.
Like, you know, 15 years ago, I don't think many of us, like you said about the yacht thing, it's interesting you mentioned that. Most people wouldn't ever have thought about that kind of stuff, right? But you suddenly see it on Instagram, you're like, oh, that is possible.
Yeah.
You know, like I've seen Rick Ross, for example, get a massage every single day. You know, and I'm like, that's a hell of a life, isn't it? Just thinking about it like that way. But you wouldn't think about it if you didn't see it,
No.
like at all.
So I think if we can try to expose ourselves to many different points of view,
Yeah.
to take away the polarization and to not be bombarded with the same message all over, like time and time again, that will make the world a better place, A. But if we can also follow people that just whose life seem to inspire us, remember, like, just because it looks good doesn't mean that they feel good, but it could inspire you to get there. And you can write your story in the making of being there. You could still have that life and be happy. That doesn't mean that they are happy having that life, but it gives you that sense of inspiration. Then yeah, follow people that inspire you, as long as you don't make it into something negative, something that, oh, how could I, or I have to do this. It's like, as soon as you get this almost anxiety about following someone, just unfollow that person.
Yep,
You know.
100%. I can, oh, mute you, even mute that person. Like
Mm.
it's another easy aspect to just do, right? So I think like, that's a good, really good point to be honest. Like in terms of just social medias and how, like, if we can flip it, it can still impact you in a positive way. And I think for everyone here as well, like I know you, some of this you found us on social media, for example, right? And you know we may have had an impact on your lives. So there's definitely some positives there when it comes down to it. And I think it's like choose who you want to follow, be careful with who you follow. I think that's quite important. Or don't just go randomly on a splurge and be like, yeah, let me follow like hundreds of people, and then suddenly that's impacting your psyche and that's impacting your mental space on a day-to-day basis because you're like, oh, but this person, and you get comparison syndrome, right? Like there's probably a lot more comparison syndrome now than let's say 2005,
Yeah.
most likely, right? If you think about it, comparison syndrome before would have been like you actually have to see that person and that was really it, right? You didn't know most people's lives. Yeah, the thing is, most people's lives were very like quote unquote private because there was no social media. How would you know what they were doing apart from like your neighbor? They had a car and now they had a house. That was really it. So you think keep up with the Joneses kind of thing. Now it's easy to do that. You just look back and you go Instagram. If I want to have a shit day, let me go to someone who I want to compare myself to and just scroll, 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 scroll.
Find a person that will make you feel shit.
Exactly.
Looking for them as well.
Yeah.
You know.
There you go, and that's dangerous in itself, right? So I think there is the aspects to this, and you've got the good, bad, and the ugly. In my opinion, with social media, it's like you choose which spectrum you want to go into. You want to go into the good side, stick to the good side. If you want to go into like the ugly side, which is obviously comparison gyms, then you go into that. If you want to go into the bad side, which is obviously you've got the supplement side, or you got a influencer who's selling something and you're like you have no clue about it, and you've just been following this person for a while and you're like, yeah, let me go for it, let me trust him on that. And that can also be very dangerous.
Yeah, so just I think as a last message is just use social media wisely,
Yeah.
and don't use your emotions when making decisions, um, in terms of who you're going to buy from and what you're going to believe, because we will often look for something that confirms our belief. It's often what we do, especially on social media. So if you want to believe something really a lot, which even if it doesn't serve you, you can go on social media and find all the reasons for why your belief system is the right way, which is then going to hold you back or keep you in this feeling of negative spiral. So yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We obviously did a two-part special to this one. I think it is quite useful because obviously not a lot of people talk about social media too often, especially like the rise of influencers over the last like 10, 15 years, and where social media is heading towards. So hopefully, you guys can look back on this maybe in 10 years time, and the predictions we've made could be true, could not be true. But if it's not true, we'll do another episode and kind of call ourselves out from it. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a fantastic Friday as well, and a really good weekend.